A man who dares to waste 1 hour of time has not discovered the value of life. Man tends to increase at a greater rate than his means of subsistence. The very essence of instinct is that it's followed independently of reason. A man's friendships are one of the best measures of his worth. In the long history of humankind, those who learn to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. A moral being is one who is capable of reflecting on his past actions and their motives of approving of some and disapproving of others. False facts are highly injurious to the progress of science, for they often endure long, but false views, if supported by some evidence, do little harm, for everyone takes a salutary pleasure in proving their falseness. A scientific man ought to have no wishes, no affections, a mere heart of stone. I love fools' experiments. I am always making them. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. If everyone was cast in the same mold, there would be no such thing as beauty. It is so important to bear in mind the probability of conversion from one function to another. The limit of man's knowledge in any subject possesses a high interest, which is perhaps increased by its close neighborhood to the realms of imagination. Evolution is written on the wings of butterflies. Freedom of thought is best promoted by the gradual illumination of men's minds, which follows from the advance of science. A fair result can be obtained only by fully stating and balancing the facts and arguments on both sides of each question. I am like a gambler and love a wild experiment. The highest possible stage in moral culture is when we recognize that we ought to control our thoughts. Species of the same genus would occasionally exhibit reversions to lost ancestral characters. I am a firm believer that without speculation, there is no good and original observation. Free will is to mind what chance is to matter. The imagination is one of the highest prerogatives of man. If I had my life to live over again, I would have made a rule to read some poetry and listen to some music at least once every week. We stopped looking for monsters under our bed when we realized that they were inside us. Intelligence is based on how efficient a species became at doing the things they need to survive. We must, however, acknowledge, as it seems to me, that man with all his noble qualities still bears in his bodily frame the indelible stamp of his lowly origin. There is no fundamental difference between man and animals in their ability to feel pleasure and pain, happiness and misery. We are not here concerned with hopes or fears, only with truth, as far as our reason permits us to discover it. Often a cold shudder has run through me, and I have asked myself whether I may have not devoted myself to a fantasy. He who remains passive, when overwhelmed with grief, loses his best chance of recovering his elasticity of mind. As for a future life, every man must judge for himself, between conflicting vague probabilities. As natural selection works solely by, and for the good of each being, all corporeal and mental endowments will tend to progress towards perfection. Besides love and sympathy, animals exhibit other qualities connected with the social instincts, which in us would be called moral. Great is the power of steady misrepresentation, but the history of science shows how, fortunately, this power does not endure long. I conclude that the musical notes and rhythms were first acquired by the male or female progenitors of mankind, for the sake of charming the opposite sex. Time is most important ingredient in recipe of life. Nothing exists for itself alone, but only in relation to other forms of life. Building a better mousetrap merely results in smarter mice.